asking the question, what reforms are needed to get the country back on track? I'm now joined by political commentator and Zimbabwean living in South Africa, Joshua Maponga. Joshua, always a pleasure to talk to you. Let's just begin here. You know what the president had to say tonight? He's basically been blaming a lot of foreign forces and saying that there are some forces that are trying to undermine his efforts to get that country back to, you know, where it used to be in the past. Do you agree?
The politics of Africa must be understood both as domestic politics and international politics. Domestic politics speaks to the decisions that a government will make to run its own local politics. The international politics has to do with the influence of the external bodies into how they are meddling and actually impinging. Due to the fact that the Zimbabwean government beat the British government, we have never been forgiven for that act. As a result, the infrastructure of the country still remains in the hands of the colonialists. Having said that, however, the protests are to an extent an outcry that while the government is making agreements with the British government to compensate the white farmers, the question is not what the government is doing, but what the people need. What do the people need? Are people in agreement with the government paying the oppressor for colonizing? If I come to your house and I steal your car, and I put mag wheels on it, and I put some small little leather steering on it, the day you find your car, then you want me to pay for the improvements that you did on my stolen car. From my position, and on behalf of the greater Zimbabwean community, I stand here to condemn with the strongest terms that the idea of compensating colonialists for colonialism is not justifiable. And what is happening in Zimbabwe, South Africa must learn that the colonizer will not change his habits of wanting to take as much as possible from the African people. So the people are in protest, not only for the coronavirus, but also for the land compensation and the amount of money the government is actually willing to pay the oppressor for the process of colonialism.
There are calls tonight for the international community to get involved. There are also calls for the African Union to get involved. As you are cautioning against the world getting involved in the matters of Zimbabwe, do you think it's a good idea at this time for the world to heed the calls of some Zimbabweans?
I don't think the international community is sincere and genuine in their protest. Darfur is in war. Gaddafi was killed. Congo is in war. Angola is in war. Zimbabwe's protests are 3 to 4 days old. We have wars that have been happening for the past 30 to 40 years on a stretch with American governments, with French governments and European governments directly involved into the colonization and the plundering of the African countries. Their sincerity of saying that they want the international community to be involved in Zimbabwe only means that the people who have vested interest in the country, their bottom lines and profits are now being affected. Hence, they want to use the international community to protect their investment. But there's no genuine appeal in terms of them wanting the change in Zimbabwe. If the international community wants change in Zimbabwe, I suggest that they must look at Darfur, they must look at Congo, they must look at Angola and Sierra Leone, they must look at Somalia, wars that have been pending for the past 30 to 40 years. And the international community has been looking, including the killing of Gaddafi. What did the international community do? We don't want to buy and put cotton wool on the faces of the Africans to think that when the international community speaks, then all of us must get scared. They have never been serious and committed to African peace, from diseases to economics to politics to our own indigenous movements. For that reason, I don't think the international community is sincere in protecting African lives more than they are interested in protecting the economies of their own parastatals and international communities.
And who do the people of Zimbabwe look to tonight to try and restore their hope? Because some of them are giving up on opposition parties, others are also giving up on even its neighboring countries for help.
The opposition parties cannot be opposition parties As long as we are changing foxes with hyenas, nothing will change. Opposition parties that want to run the same colonial system will not make a difference. South Africa, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, and the rest of the countries, you put new leaders into space. When they are in power, they are not there to change the infrastructure, change the system. They are there to maintain the system and manage the same Roman Dutch laws, which constantly, through the constitution, oppress the locals. Therefore, the change of regime is not what we are looking for. We are looking for the change of the system. And I want to challenge all opposition parties from South Africa and the entire Africa. Until we are serious on how do we change the system, nothing will change.